Grant stirred. He ached everywhere. Worst of all was his stomach. Placing a hand there, he found tender skin left over from healing magic. Memories came flooding back into his head. The spiders. He looked around and knew he was in some place different. It was a house. Walls were laden with pots and pans. Near the door was a weapon rack holding Grant's giant sword. Light seeped in through the window. Grant pushed off a layer of blankets and furs as he moved about. Peering through the window, he found himself surrounded by fields. Small plants poked through the dirt, their green leaves soaking up the sun. Standing in the middle was an old man. Time had bent him over. He leaned heavily on his hoe. Seeing the mercenary looking at him, he waved and hobbled back to the small home. "Ah, glad to see you awake. You've been out for a few days," the old man asked. "Did you save me from the spiders?" Grant questioned. "Thank you." "I would never leave someone to those buggers. Tell me, what are you doing in the forest? I didn't see any of the equipment in the webs." Grant didn't answer. The old man nodded, unperturbed. He understood that Grant wasn't ready to talk about it. "Are you a farmer?" "Yep. Got my crops coming in nicely." The old man accepted the change of topics easily. "Lots of tubers this year. Nice and reliable." "I see. Any help I can offer you as thanks for saving me?" Sure. You know how to milk cows?" "I can try," Grant offered. "Let me show you." The two men headed off to a small barn beside the house. Hello and welcome back to Mythical Phylogeny. I'm your guide, Jason. Farming is the foundation of all civilizations. If your people don't eat, they don't live. This is doubly true even in worlds of fantasy and magic. Farming under such conditions will change a variety of things. Let's take a bit to look how that would be. Yes, giant monsters. What fantasy world is not loaded with giant monsters for adventurers to slay? Why must they be slain? Well, they terrorize the local population. They destroy towns and farms. Yes, the farms which we are looking at. So what can a farmer do to protect his house from a giant monster roaming the wilds? First is, how do we keep it out of the fields? Build walls around them, tall ones. That would stop anything that doesn't fly or crawl over them. For something that crawls, there are herbs which can help ward off some, but not all. That, and they will weaken with time. You could try an enchantment or a charm placed over the fields to ward off such large animals. But would that work? In the end, probably not. Sooner or later, some giant beast is going to come running through your fields, tearing it up and trampling your plants. First off, we need to pick plants that can take the abuse of having something massive walk on them. Wheat plants are going to struggle. That means bread may be difficult. One animal gets into the field and half your crop is gone. This also means rice could be difficult to grow. It is another stocky plant. So what about something like a tomato? The fruits grow off of stems and could easily be trampled as well. That would include things like pepper, celery, lettuce, strawberries, and melons. All those would be difficult crops. So what crops would be hard to trample? Roots. Things that grow underground. Potatoes, carrots, peanuts, and onions. These sort of root vegetables would be a critical factor in the diet of a fantasy world. These plants have the vegetable portion underground where being trampled would be of less damage. Good. What about trees? Apples, oranges, pears, lemon trees? How will a fantasy world affect these crops? Trees should be able to grow through these worlds, correct? So would these fruits be on the table? The problem with large orchards is how long they take to grow. Decades. If you can protect the orchard that long, then you could grow fruit. Next, we have climbing plants like beans and grapevines. These need something to climb on, such as a wall or a tree. You could have set up frames for them to grow over. Again, these will run the risk of being trampled. Lastly, the crops will be at risk from burrowing creatures. These should be the rarest and would cause a problem for any form of crop. could protect your field by driving heavy metal bars deep into the ground to form a wall. The next issue comes from housing the farmers. On Earth, a farmhouse is just another house, but that changes in a fantasy world. One house per farm? Would that work here? This depends on how common our giant monsters are and how intelligent. If you were a semi-intelligent monster and you saw a lone house out in the woods, would you attack it? Only a few people. Most of them tired from working the fields all day? So easy. A nice, simple meal. How to prevent this? There is strength in numbers, and if your world is dangerous, then you need to protect your farmers. That could be hard to do with a single farmhouse. If you are living in a farming community that shares the farmland, then you can prepare a guard unit or response group. This, I think, would be the safest. Have a wall around your little hamlet, and set up a defensive line. Yet, a large community would attract predators as well. Lots of weak and defenseless food running around through there. So how do we protect it? You could hire mercenaries or adventurers to protect you. You may also have a few retired adventurers in your population. What if you're alone? I want to make sure to give you the options, and there is one. It was fairly common in the American frontier and in Europe's Middle Ages. Tolkien even used them in his works. What am I talking about? Well, underground housing, like a hobbit hole. This makes it hard to find your home, and if it is buried deep enough underground, it's hard to access. Think of a rabbit hole. These houses are cheap to produce and only require shovels and wood for framing the structure to prevent it from collapsing. This won't allow a lot of sunlight to enter your home, but provides you with safety. There is one final thing that will drastically influence farming in a fantasy world. What many would consider the defining trait of such a world: magic. Oh yes, magic will have a powerful influence on farmers, particularly with the weather. Droughts are a constant threat to farmers. A year with no rain will decimate their crops. What can prevent this? Magic that can make it rain. In a cold year, magic can make it warm. These two spells would be critical to all fantasy farming. But it is not the most important of all. In fact, there's one entire class of spells that would be beyond important. Magic of a druid. Particularly spells that cause plants to grow. Usually it takes months to grow a crop. But with this magic, you can cut the time down substantially. From months to days for wheat, or decades to months for trees if not faster. Right here, this is a major game changer. It could render all of my first sections completely irrelevant. Suddenly, all crop options are on the table. This includes foods which you would not normally be able to grow. Bananas and pineapples could be grown in temperate environments. Deserts could grow a whole bounty of fruits and vegetables. Oh, don't forget, you could also grow a garden underground and safe from giant monsters. Think dwarven cities. Sounds perfect. Well, it isn't. First off, will the plants grown by magic in nature have the same taste? Will this nutrient content be the same? In theory they should, assuming that the plant's full growth process is completed. Of course, there is another factor here: the nutrients in the soil. This could undermine all those brilliant growing plants. Plants need nitrogen, phosphorus, calcium, magnesium, potassium, etc., 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 just like a growing human. Certain plants will deposit these elements in the ground from the air and the soil, namely peanuts and peas being infamous for this. To do this nutrient deposit, the plant will require time which may not benefit from magical aid. This will slow down crop production. One way to work with this is to do crop rotations, having 3 fields which can switch between crops differently. You can also switch in your livestock into the rotation to provide manure. Another option is companion planting. Generally, you grow some sort of grain, a legume like beans, and a squash together. This helps protect against pests and diseases and supports the roots of the different plants. Sweat ran down Grant's muscular back. He hadn't worked this hard in a while. It was different than swinging a sword. Continuous and heavy labor. His eyes drifted to the old man. He was tiny, but worked twice as fast as the muscular man. The old man moved from plant to plant, weaving his magic into each. Laying his hand over each, he made them grow an inch. Without haste, he moved his crops forward. This was skills that was developed over years. As they went, Grant felt this wasn't just any old man. "You were an adventurer, weren't you?" "Aye, years ago, back when I was younger and more handsome." He stroked his beard and thought back to his glory days. Yeah, those were the days. Turning to the muscular young man, he added, "You still are one, aren't you?" "I don't know," Grant grunted. "Ah, I see. Well, you are welcome to stay here as long as you want. I could use the help. There's a lot of work to be done still." "Thank you." Thank you for watching. I know this is a different sort, but an important thing to look at when understanding a fantasy world. Please return next week, where we shall be feeling the flames of the phoenix. Until then, safe travels.